Hey, it's Ed. Welcome to Lessons from My Mentors. This one's a little tougher topic for some people, and it's about being fired and hiring people who have been fired. So I was fired one time and I was pulled aside by an executive. So this would have been more of an informal mentor. And I remember him putting his arms around me, and he was a pretty influential person in the community and definitely a highly visible person and involved in the politics, but also sort of in the finance banking industry. But he was trying to encourage me and said, Ed, I was fired earlier in my career. And he said, in fact, most people, if they're super transparent with you, most highly successful people have been fired. Why? Now, obviously, there's times when people are fired for egregious reasons, right? They do something really unethical, unmoral. So I'm sort of like putting that aside as something separate. But we're talking about people who just get fired because of their performance, something related to that that's not on the ethical, moral side, policy side. So I did take encouragement from that and thought about it some more and read about it some more. And indeed, a lot of people, why are they fired? Putting those other categories aside. They're fired probably because they've taken some risks. They've taken some calculated risks and maybe they didn't go right. It could be personality, could be vision, could be assertiveness. There's a lot of different reasons. So you shouldn't hold that against someone. In fact, you should hire for it. So I remember, with that experience in mind, I was interviewing someone one time for a key role. And I asked them, hey, what happened, your last position, those type of questions. And he just frankly came out and said, I was fired. And I was like, whoa, wow, that person in my mind thinking about this is super, super honest. So that's a bonus point right there to be that transparent. And so I dug in, obviously, a little bit more. And, he explained that he was fired. He had some really great ideas, out of the box thinking, and it just didn't go well with that particular culture. And so he ultimately was let go. And I'm thinking, as I'm interviewing, that's exactly what I want. I want someone who's counterculture. I want someone who's going to push the envelope. I'm going to want someone who's super creative. And so I did hire him, and he turned out to be amazing. And we did these pretty amazing things with the technology. We were doing things with that technology that others weren't able to do and struggling with. And so ultimately we did them. And then that company then shared that as a best practice for others. So that's just an example. So if you've ever been fired, don't worry about it. You just move on. You just shake the dust off of your feet. You learn from the situation and you move on. Don't let it, like, again, putting aside those other categories, don't let your vision, your zest, your energy, your passion be diminished by someone or some organization who couldn't handle it. Because I think that's what happens a lot of times. We come into an organization and they hire you because you are the visionary, you are creative, you are passionate, you are full of energy. And then you run into the culture, right? The inertia that's maybe opposite of where you're going. And so rather than push against it and try to make strides and make some changes, what happens a lot of time is people just, they coalesce. They're like, oh, okay, I get it. So I'm just going to fit in. And they lose that energy and drive. I'll never forget this one particular example where I was in this organization. And I was kind of like this visionary. I'm going places. Let's do this. Let's transform. Let's modernize. And people were a little bit weary of that. And they were like pushing back, and the culture was pushing back, pushing back. And so a peer of mine at that organization, he's like, Ed, come to my office. And I respected the guy. I liked him quite a bit, actually. And he said, I was like you. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a great story. And indeed, because I remember reading his background, where he came from. He came from Partners, so pretty progressive organization. And he was hired at this other organization because they wanted to be like Partners. And so, but what happened is that when he arrived, the organization intellectually thinks they want to be about Partners, but they weren't ready organizationally or culturally. So he just acquiesced. Say he lost his fire. And he just told me, he was like brutally honest. And I really appreciate it. Because Ed, I was like you. And I came here and I really wanted to do things and I pushed and I pushed and I just got tired. And I was like, I'm just gonna, I'll do a great job for the organization. I'll meet what they're looking for, but I'm just gonna like settle in. And that's what he did for many, many years until he retired. He just settled in. And a lot of people are like that. And I just encourage you, don't be like that. And if you are full of fire and vigor and trying to make change, transformation, of course, you work in within the culture, don't be this obnoxious person. So you work in within the culture and try to make things work, but don't acquiesce. Don't be, what is that? The Borg from Star Trek Enterprise going back here like 2 decades. Um, don't be assimilated, right? I think there was a Borg, it was like big thinking where everyone thought the same, and they'd capture all these people and they'd be assimilated into the Borg. That's what happens in a lot of organizations, and we wonder why are we so far behind in healthcare? Well, that's one of the big reasons right there is sort of the culture. And then whenever someone comes in that's different from that culture, they are tapped down to become like that culture, or they're kicked out. So whatever the reason might be, I just encourage you not to lose hope and not to lose focus. So if you've been fired, it's good. It's a good sign. Number two, hire people who have been fired. Again, not that first category I talked about necessarily, although people can rehab from that as well. But the latter category. So people who are risk takers, calculated risk takers, who take some chances, who are full of energy, full of vision, mission driven, passion, if that's what's going on with them and that's why they were let go someplace else, hire them in an instant and they will help you move the culture so that you can move transformation and help save people's lives. That's it. Lessons from my mentors. Thanks for watching.